What is going on, everybody? ZyoniK here, and in today's video, we're diving back into the Retro Cup with another strong team. Now, I wanted to try out Lycanroc. I thought it has some good coverage on this meta, considering what we're seeing. We got that Stone Edge for the flyers and ice that are pretty common. We got the Psychic Fangs for some of the poison, some of the bugs potentially, and neutral damage across most of the board, and it also does very well against XL Lickitung. But if you guys don't want to use Lycanroc, obviously something like a Medicham could swap in right there, because I think Cofagrigus and Dewgong are just incredibly strong in this meta when we have bans to Steel and Dark type Pokemon. So let me know down in the comments what you guys think, and let's go ahead and get right into it. Alright, getting into the first battle here, we have Cofagrigus on the lead versus Aurorus. So this is a pretty cool Pokemon that I am devastated that I didn't hatch when it was out, and I'm still looking for trades. But in this matchup, I'm going to look to go straight for Shadow Ball. Now, I always love to read or predict what my opponent is thinking or why they're doing things. So I'm reading that, you know what, maybe they just want to try to get rid of Cofagrigus without having to give up a shield because they might be weak in the back. So I go ahead and protect Cofagrigus, knowing that it might be do very well in the back line, and then swap into Lycanroc here. Even if a Medicham comes in, you can still apply Psychic Fang's debuff and then bring in the Cofagrigus into that matchup. But in this case, we have a Swampert. Both counters to Lycanroc, but ultimately we softened it up, which is totally fine. I'm going to go ahead and let this go. Now what's cool about this is because they got debuffed by Psychic Fangs, they might swap out right away. So I'm going to bring in Dewgong, and sure enough, they blind swap into an Altaria. It would have been good game either way with Psychic Fang's debuff, Icy Wind debuff. That's what this team excels at, is debuffing your opponent, and it's very tough to come back from, especially with the bulk that we have on Dewgong and Cofagrigus. Like I said, Lycanroc is kind of like my spicy pick on this team. I love to interweave some unique Pokemon into more meta lines just to see how they perform, but you guys could easily slot in a Medicham right there. So we're just going to go ahead and go for multiple Icy Winds. There's really no way they can come back from this game, because now we can swap back into Cofagrigus. Swampert is double debuffed, so we can survive Hydro Cannons and Earthquakes. And Cofagrigus has been really impressing me as of late. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I've been adding it onto my roster as many times as I can in the recent metas. It's just really good. I'm just being honest. It's really good. Alright, good game. Then we got Cofagrigus versus Lapras here on the lead. So, I love Lapras in the Great League. It obviously gets outshined in the Open Great League with stuff like Registeel and Bastiodon and Galarian Stunfisk. But in metas when they're banned, it actually does really, really well. Now, they're building up to double Surf right here. So what I'm going to look to do is try to catch the next one on Dewgong, saving Cofagrigus. Obviously, with the Lapras lead, there could be a Medicham still lurking in the back, which is why I decide to try to catch charge moves on other Pokemon and keep it alive. But instead, we have an Alolan Marowak in the back, which is, again, something that Cofagrigus can do very well against. And with Drill Run, the recent move update for Dewgong, it can put pressure in the mid-game. Dewgong is by far one of the biggest winners of the recent update. Getting access to Drill Run, this thing it's meta. It is here, and it is here to stay. This thing is so good because of the raw bulk that it already has, the Icy Wind debuffs, the low energy charge moves, and decent energy gain with Ice Shard, that now we are able to get 2 shields here from Alolan Marowak, and we can safely let this go. Now, I banked a charge move here on Cofagrigus, or almost banked a charge move. I had a lot of energy, I should say, on Cofagrigus, as I can now easily go for Dark Pulse here to take out the Alolan Marowak. Now, the final Pokemon is going to be, it's going to be a Drifblim. So I swap right away into Lycanroc, and my goodness, I'm sure this happens to you guys, but I overcharge on purpose, and they still catch it. I went 2 fast moves over, maybe 3 there, and they still caught it. Good catch by my opponent. I know the sack swap is coming. I see it coming a mile away, but somehow I still managed to throw right when they catch, and it's not even on the energy, and the Drifblim now shield baited me and is able to go for the Shadow Ball. Boom, down I go. Alright, Cofagrigus, you can come in and get to this Dark Pulse. No worries. We lose. CMP tie. Oh, The frustration, I'll just say that. The frustration that I had after this battle cannot be understated. Good game to my opponent. Fantastic catch there, but my gosh, I decided to go on a tear after that game because I was so fresh. I clearly had the win con. It was set up to be a good game, and I just threw it away. But that's what happens in Go Battle League, and that's why it's so much fun when you can come back from situations like that. Now, Dunsparce here on the lead is kind of tough for this team to handle because of the normal typing to resist the Shadow Claws from Quagsire and the move coverage that it has. But my opponent makes a very interesting swap. They decide to come in with Dewgong here. So they have a Dunsparce and a Dewgong. And I'm thinking to myself, if this is their best answer, they might have a flyer in the back as well. So I'm going to go ahead and go for the full farm down now with Lycanroc and just load up on as much energy as possible. So let's see what decides to come in. Mind you, we banked energy on Quagsire. It's going to be a Frostlass, so not a flyer, but Lycanroc does well against this whole team. Yes, obviously we got to watch out for the drill runs, but we can put so much pressure in this battle that we're going to go ahead and now go for Psychic Fangs. We built back up to Stone Edge, so if this gets shield number 2, which it does, I swap right in Quagsire and go for the Shadow Ball right away. Probably could have gotten away with going for Dark Pulse just in case they went into Dunsparce, but boom! See ya! And now Dunsparce, it just doesn't have enough damage to win this game, so they will surrender, and that is going to be a good battle, very well played. So Lycanroc doing very well right there for me. All right, now we got Quagsire versus Jellicent here on the lead. And Quagsire, because there's no Sableye, right, it just does so well. Now they swap in a Lickitung, and this is exactly why I brought Lycanroc, or I thought, you know, it could do pretty well, is because of the matchup it has against Lickitung. It resists Body Slam. Lick is only neutral damage, and we can do a lot of neutral damage here with Stone Edge. Now, yes, you do need to watch out for Power Whip, as it is super effective, but if they just go for Body Slams, which is going to be exactly what they're doing here, you can easily win the Zero Shield, no problem. And we can also apply the Psychic Fang debuff on the back end, which is going to make the Shadow Claws just do that much more damage. Now, unfortunately for me, this Jellicent is going to get a good amount of energy being able to farm us down, but we did chunk it to about 60%, as Quagsire is going to go ahead and come in, and I'm going to be forced to shield here. I don't want to get hit with the Shadow Ball, which it is going to be, so that's actually a really nice shield for me in this battle. And they do swap out in Pidgeot, so we have basically a triple hard counter here, which is always nice sometimes to see. I mean, granted, you know, it happens, right? Sometimes you'll get triple hard counters, sometimes you'll hard counter the opponent's team. But in a lot of battles that I do, I've noticed that there's always an advantage that you can get. So in this case, my opponent is looking to go for Feather Dance, and that's where I had to make the big call, because if it was a Brave Bird, I might have been in trouble. But ultimately, I made the call that it was going to be a Feather Dance, and it paid off as they decide now to go for another charge move here. Now, this is another good learning lesson here. I feel like this is Learn with ZyoniK Day. In this setup here against Jellicent, you got to go for Icy Wind. I went for Drill Run. Why? Well, the opponent is going to shield bait me, or attempt to shield bait me, and land a Shadow Ball, right? I have Dark Pulses. But if I Icy Wind there, it doesn't matter how much damage it does, the Shadow Ball then won't KO. But now, because I didn't do it, it is going to KO. So this is, oh, boom. Thankfully, Dewgong has a good amount of health left where I can farm down, but I could have won that had I gone for Icy Wind and just survived and Shadow Claw down. It would have been all good. Alright, good battle. We got Quagsire now versus Medicham. So obviously a very positive lead here, and my opponent is deciding to stay in. This is like, either the most likely case is they're also weak in the back in some way, shape, or form. So I'm just going to see what they decide to do. Well, there's a Trevenant. No wonder they decided to stay in. So what we're going to do here is go for Dark Pulse, and then thankfully Dewgong does well in this matchup because Ice Shard just does so much damage. You can easily tank one Seed Bomb. Seed Bomb did get an update with how much damage it does, but Dewgong can easily tank that, and now we go for an Icy Wind here against the Trevenant. We don't want to be forced to shield. We'd rather save our shields for Lycanroc and Cofagrigus, and we can hopefully get to another Icy Wind here against Medicham, which we do, which is just beautiful. They've shown that they went straight for Ice Punch instead of Psychic against Cofagrigus on that lead. So my guess is they might have Power Up Punch and Ice Punch. So I'm going to play to that right here as I bring in the Cofagrigus, as we're going to look to no shield. I'm guessing Ice Punch and Power Up Punch, and sure enough, it was Power Up Punch right there. So now they're going to look to go for an Ice Punch, and I can safely still no shield this. Cofagrigus has done its job, and Medicham is likely the hardest counter to Lycanroc, so let's see what's in the back. It's going to be an Altaria. So we're going to go ahead and go for the Shadow Ball right away, and then we're going to bring in that Lycanroc with the Stone Edge. 2-0 shields, and I'm actually going to do something a bit different, right? Obviously, I should probably just go straight for Stone Edge, but I instead decide to go for Psychic Fangs. And you may be thinking, why? I'm like, well, I want the bigger boom, right? I want the boom that lasts you into the next battle. The trauma that I can apply here to this Altaria, knowing that this Lycanroc went for the Psychic Fangs and then the Stone Edge for the mega boom here, is always fun. Go for the boom, have fun in these battles. Boom! One-shot the Altaria. Again, we could have just gone for Stone Edge before, but I wanted that extra damage. All right, good game. We got Cofagrigus now, or we're using Cofagrigus. We got Quagsire here on the lead. And something interesting about Quagsire is he can do very well against this team, right? You got Stone Edge for Dewgong, you got Mud Bombs for Lycanroc, and we get a shield here. So this is something interesting to note, that my opponent must be weak in the back. But I'm going to call that these are Mud Bombs here. So I'm going to go ahead and let that first one go through. The second one, it's a tough call, but I'm going to go ahead and look to shield here. And then I'm going to look to go for a Shadow Ball if I can get to it in time. And then if I get shield number 2 from my opponent, clearly I need to keep Cofagrigus alive. So I do get shield number 2. I'm going to go ahead and go into Dewgong now. And I catch the charge move. So my guess is that this is actually going to be Mud Bomb, considering the timing that I had. And then if they decide to stay in, which they are, the next charge move they're going to go for is probably going to be a Stone Edge here. So I'm going to go ahead and safely shield. I kept my Cofagrigus alive because they clearly don't want to face off against it in the back. And Dewgong here is sitting very good, as we did stop the Stone Edge. And now we throw the Icy Wind just before they get to the next Mud Bomb, which is perfect, as we have a good amount of energy, a good amount of health. They bring in a Kingdra. Kingdra definitely looking interesting for this meta because of the ban to Steels and Fairies. So Icy Wind here does a good amount of damage, and they actually have a Swampert in the back, so we are just debuffing this whole team. As Dewgong, it's what it does, right? If there's no real hard counter, and even then, we've seen it against Medichams, you can still do great neutral damage and lower the attack, because Ice Shard and Icy Wind is just such a great combination on Dewgong that they're going to be forced to throw an Earthquake here in order to take us out. Now, this is tough because I need to keep Lycanroc alive. I think I can make it to a Psychic Fangs versus the Kingdra, so I'm going to come in with the Cofagrigus right here to soak a charge move. Soak in literally, because it's going to be a Hydro Cannon. Now I got to swap into Lycanroc to farm down so that they don't get to another Hydro Cannon in time. The Kingdra now coming in. I should be able to win. Yeah, they decide to surrender. I think I would have made it to the Stone Edge right there. Psychic Fangs wouldn't have been enough, but looking at the energy farm down that I had, Stone Edge would have been the good call. Alright, we got Beedrill on the lead. This is why I mentioned bugs before. I actually faced off against a Shadow Beedrill, which I think is obviously a very cool Pokemon, but it has some threats in this meta that he needs to look out for. But we go ahead and go for the Dark Pulse, and they swap into Machamp, and I'm like, that's a bold swap. Firstly, calling the Dark Pulse throw, I could have easily gone for Shadow Ball. But then my second thought here is, if you swap a Shadow Machamp into a Cofagrigus, you gotta have a Medicham in the back. Like, there's no way around it. Clearly something in the back is extremely weak, so I'm going to go ahead and double shield my Cofagrigus now. I have almost 2 Dark Pulses ready to go, so we're going to go ahead and throw those at the Beedrill, and then we're going to swap out into Dewgong, because they're weak in the back. Like, they do not like this Cofagrigus, obviously. So they shielded once. We're going to go ahead and go for another Dark Pulse here. This is going to get shield number 2. Now we go into Dewgong here to see what they had in the back, try to draw it out. But they decide to stay in and look to go for the Drill Run, which is fine. Dewgong here can survive. It is Shadow Beedrill, though, so it hits pretty hard. But ultimately, we're not too concerned. We're going to go for Icy Wind right away. I just want to get this Beedrill out of there because the threat of Drill Run to Lycanroc is too big. Final Pokemon is going to be Shadow Dragonair, so that is going to be a good game. We couldn't get to the Icy Wind, unfortunately, as they do decide to throw the Body Slam here to take us out. But Lycanroc should be able to make quick work of it with Counter and Psychic Fangs, as we can win the race to that. So that is going to be a good battle. But yeah, catching the Dark Pulse on a Shadow Machamp, I mean, that's a bold move right there. But we were able to overcome, and that's going to be a good battle on this team. Actually performed really well. Lots of wins with it today. And like I said at the beginning, maybe you didn't hear, maybe you fast forward and you're kind of sticking around now, you could easily swap out Lycanroc for something like a Medicham. I think the Cofagrigus and Dewgong combination in this meta looks pretty solid, and Lycanroc was my kind of like spicy pick. Bring it in to handle the XL Lickitungs, has the Stone Edge for the Ice and the Flyers, and the Psychic Fang for some of those debuffs or neutral damage and kind of setups. So overall, pretty fun team, and I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. So like always, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.